Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Joanna. Thanks for joining us today.
We've picked a topic that almost everyone can relate to. Why do people travel? Is it to escape, to learn, or simply to rest?
Exactly. Travel is one of those things that people spend so much money and time on, but the reasons behind it are often very personal.
So today, we'll dive into three main reasons: escaping, learning, and resting. And of course, we'll share some of our own stories.
Sounds perfect. Let's get started with the first one, escaping.
So let's start with the first reason people travel: escaping. Honestly, I think this is the most common one. Daily life can be overwhelming. Long hours at work, noisy commutes, family responsibilities. Sometimes you just feel like you have to get out.
Absolutely. I remember one winter when I was working nonstop. My body was in the office, but my mind was already somewhere far away. One Friday night, I booked a last-minute trip to a quiet coastal town. It wasn't far, but it felt like another world.
That's great. What did you do there?
Nothing special. I just walked by the sea, ate local food, and stayed in a small guest house. But the feeling of not hearing my phone ring every 5 minutes, that was priceless.
I know that feeling. For me, it was Mexico. I was exhausted from a big project at work, and a friend invited me to join him in Cancun. At first I thought, no, I can't take time off. But I went anyway, and within a day, I felt alive again.
Did the escape really last after you came back? Or was it just temporary?
Honestly, it was temporary. The stress was still waiting at my desk. But I came back with new energy. It's like charging your phone. It doesn't solve everything, but it gives you enough battery to keep going.
That's a good way to put it. For me, escaping isn't just about rest. It's also about changing my perspective. When I leave my usual environment, even small problems suddenly look smaller.
Right. It's almost like stepping outside your own story for a while. Actually, I have a funny story. Years ago, I was so desperate to escape city life that I booked a trip to a tiny village in the mountains. No internet, no restaurants, just one small inn. At first I thought, this is perfect. But after 2 days, I felt bored out of my mind.
Haha, so escaping didn't exactly work that time?
Not really. It made me realize escaping doesn't mean running away from everything. It has to be balanced.
That's interesting. In many countries people do something similar. Short weekend trips to the countryside, or quick getaways to nearby towns. It doesn't have to be far, but even a small change of environment feels refreshing.
Exactly. In the U.S., people often call it a weekend getaway. Drive a few hours, stay in a cabin, or visit a beach town. Even if it's short, it feels like pressing a reset button.
Do you think escaping is really healthy, though? Some people say it's just avoiding problems instead of solving them.
That's true. But sometimes you don't need a solution. You just need breathing space. Imagine you're drowning in water. Escaping is like reaching the surface for air. You still have to swim later, but at least you can breathe.
That's a strong image. For me, escaping is more like hitting pause on a movie. The problems don't disappear, but you get a break before pressing play again.
Good point. Here's another thought. Do you think social media has changed the way people escape?
Definitely. Some people travel to escape, but they still post every moment online. It's like they never really left their routine because they're performing for their followers.
Exactly. I once tried a no-phone trip. I left my phone in the hotel safe for 2 days. At first it was terrifying. No GPS, no photos, no messages. But by the second day, I felt free in a way I hadn't in years.
That's brave. I don't know if I could do that. But maybe real escape today means escaping technology as much as escaping your job.
Yes, and maybe escaping doesn't always require travel. Sometimes just taking a long walk in your own neighborhood, or even staying at a friend's house, can feel like escape.
True. The heart of it is leaving your routine. That can be 2,000 miles away or just 2 kilometers away.
Exactly. So escaping isn't about distance. It's about perspective.
Now let's talk about the second reason people travel, learning. Honestly, this one is my personal favorite. Every trip I take teaches me something new, not just about the place, but about myself.
Same here. When I went to Japan, I learned so much in 1 week. For example, the way people line up quietly for trains. It sounds small, but it made me rethink how I behave in public spaces back home.
I had a similar moment in Italy. I studied Italian before I went, but ordering food in a real restaurant was completely different. I still remember saying un cappuccino, per favor, and the barista smiling at me. That small moment gave me so much confidence.
That's the best part. Travel forces you to practice what you know. You can study a language for years, but when you're at a train station and you have to ask, which platform? You learn in a deeper way.
Exactly. But let me ask you, Chris, do you think people really learn when they travel, or do they just collect photos?
Haha, good question. Honestly, many people just do checklist travel. Like, I saw the Eiffel Tower, I took a selfie, done. But that's not real learning.
I agree. Real learning happens when you slow down. For example, in Spain, I stayed with a host family. They taught me how to tortilla espanola. I didn't just eat Spanish food. I learned the history and family traditions behind it.
That's amazing. Food is such a powerful teacher. When I visited Korea, I learned how important food sharing is. People put dishes in the middle of the table and everyone eats together. It's not just about the meal, it's about community.
Yes, in Korea we call it banchan culture. The side dishes show generosity. And when foreigners experience that, they don't just learn about food, they learn about our values.
Travel also teaches you to be humble. I remember once in Germany, I couldn't figure out the subway ticket machine. A local teenager helped me. It was a small thing, but it reminded me that I'm not always in control, and that's okay.
I had the same feeling in France. I tried to buy bread and I forgot to greet the shopkeeper with bonjour. She looked offended. That moment taught me that politeness isn't optional in French culture.
I love that. Travel is the fastest way to discover cultural rules you'd never learn from a book.
True. And sometimes you learn things about yourself. When I was in Nepal, I realized how little I need to be happy. Just a small guest house, a cup of tea, and friendly conversation made me feel at peace.
That's beautiful. For me, I learned patience. In South America, buses didn't always come on time. At first, I was frustrated. But then I thought, maybe the problem isn't them. Maybe the problem is me being too impatient.
That's such a good point. Travel doesn't only teach us about the world, it changes how we see ourselves.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second. Do you think we sometimes overestimate what we learn from travel? Like, is 1 week in a country really enough to understand it?
That's fair. 1 week gives you a window, not the whole picture. But even a small window can change your perspective.
True. I guess the key is attitude. If you go with curiosity, you learn. If you go with just a camera, maybe not.
Exactly. Curiosity makes the difference. And even small lessons matter. Like in Thailand, I learned that smiling is a way of communication. People smile to show kindness, to avoid conflict, or just to connect.
Yes, I remember that too. A Thai shop owner once smiled at me even when I made a mistake. That smile taught me more about kindness than 100 books.
So maybe learning through travel is less about facts and more about feelings. You don't just remember what you saw. You remember how it made you feel.
That's powerful. It means the real lesson of travel is emotional, not just intellectual.
Exactly.
So the third reason people travel is to rest. Honestly, this one is sometimes underestimated. People think travel should always be exciting or educational, but sometimes you just need to lie on a beach and do nothing.
I used to feel guilty about that. Like if I'm spending money to go somewhere, I should be active, visiting places, learning new things. But then I realized rest is productive too.
I had the same guilt. A few years ago, I went to Thailand. My plan was full of activities, temples, markets, tours. But on the second day, I was so tired I decided to stay at the resort. I swam, I napped, I ate, and honestly, it turned out to be one of the best days of the trip.
That makes sense. I had a similar experience in Bali. At first, I wanted to see everything, rice terraces, waterfalls, yoga classes. But halfway through, I just stayed in a small villa and read books by the pool. It felt like time stopped.
That sounds perfect. But let me ask, do you think resting while traveling is really necessary? Can't we just rest at home?
Good question. I think the environment makes the difference. At home, even if you try to rest, you see dishes in the sink, emails on your phone, laundry waiting. Away from home, those things don't exist. You allow yourself to fully relax.
That's so true. When I rest at home, I always feel guilty, like I should be cleaning, I should be working. But when I rest while traveling, it feels deserved.
Exactly. Rest during travel feels like giving yourself permission. And sometimes you discover new ways to rest. For example, in Japan, I tried an onsen, a hot spring bath. It wasn't just physical rest, it was mental too.
Oh, I love onsens. They teach you that resting can be a cultural experience. For me, in Morocco, I tried a traditional hammam, a steam bath. It was so intense, but afterward, I felt lighter, like I had left all my stress behind.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So resting doesn't always mean lying in bed. It can be active too, like meditation retreats, yoga trips, or wellness tours.
Right. That's becoming popular wellness travel. People go on trips just to focus on their health and peace of mind.
Yes, like digital detox retreats. No phones, no internet, just silence. Have you ever tried one?
Not officially, but I once traveled to a small cabin with no Wi-Fi. At first, I panicked. I thought, what if something important happens? But after 2 days, I realized nothing important actually happened. The world kept going without me.
Ha ha ha. That's true. Resting also means resting from pressure, not just from work.
Let me ask you, do you think resting trips are a luxury? Some people say it's a waste of money to travel far just to sleep and relax.
I don't think so. Think about it, if resting makes you healthier, calmer, and more focused when you return. Isn't that an investment?
Good point. And rest means different things for different people. For some, it's a beach. For others, it's hiking in the mountains.
Exactly. For me, resting is being in nature. When I hear birds, see trees, and breathe fresh air, I feel restored.
For me, it's water. Oceans, lakes, even a swimming pool. Something about water makes me feel at peace.
That's beautiful. There's also research showing that people who take vacations live longer and are less stressed. So rest isn't just fun, it's healthy.
I believe that. Sometimes doing nothing is the best thing you can do for yourself.
And maybe resting during travel is also about slowing down in a world that's always rushing.
Yes, travel reminds us that life doesn't have to move at full speed all the time.
So far, we've talked about escaping, learning, and resting. But honestly, I think most trips are a mix of all three.
Totally. And remember back in the beginning, we said escaping doesn't always require travel. Sometimes even a long walk or staying at a friend's house can feel like an escape. But when we do decide to travel, it almost always combines all three reasons.
Exactly. For example, my short trip to a coastal town. At first it was pure escape. Then I learned something new from local people. And finally, I spent a day just resting by the sea. All three reasons blended together.
Same here. When I backpacked through Europe, I escaped from work stress. I learned history from museums and conversations with locals, and by the end I took a few slow days to rest. It wasn't just one reason, it was everything combined.
And maybe the balance changes depending on your stage of life. In your 20s, you might want more adventure and learning. Later, you might care more about comfort and rest.
True. In my 20s, I wanted to see as much as possible, even if it meant sleeping in crowded hostels. Now, I prefer fewer destinations, but deeper experiences and more rest.
Same for me. But sometimes I meet young travelers who also love slow travel. So maybe it's more about personality than age.
That's a good point. Let me ask you a fun question. If money and time were unlimited, what would your dream trip look like?
I think I would spend 1 year traveling slowly through Europe. 1 month in Spain, one in Italy, another in Greece. I'd learn the language, cook local food, and just live like a local.
That sounds amazing. For me, it would be a world journey mostly by train. I'd start in Europe, crossing different countries on high-speed trains. Then I'd take the Trans-Siberian Railway across Russia and maybe connect through Mongolia or China. After that, I'd love to continue in North America by rail, from the East Coast to the West Coast. Of course, for the oceans I'd have no choice but to use a ship or maybe a flight. But whenever it's possible, I'd choose trains. I think the best part would be watching the scenery change slowly. Forests, mountains, small towns, wide fields, each region showing a different face of the world.
That's a wonderful idea. And again, it shows how travel can blend escape, learning, and rest all in one long journey.
Exactly. And even a short trip can have all three, like a weekend in the countryside. You escape the city, you learn something new from locals, and you rest in nature.
So maybe the real answer is, travel is never just one reason. It's a combination, and that's what makes it so powerful. So Chris, if you had to choose just one reason, escape, learn, or rest, which matters most to you now?
At this stage, learning. I want new cultures and ideas.
For me, resting. Life is busy and I want my travels to recharge me.
And for some people, escape is the most important. It really depends on the person and the moment in life.
Exactly. That's the beauty of travel. It gives each of us what we need most.
And for our listeners, what about you? Do you travel to escape, to learn, or to rest?
Share your thoughts with us. And until next time, happy travels wherever they take you. Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you soon!